Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm a little bit off of my game because I just woke up from a nap. And when I say just woke up from a nap, I mean about fewer than 20 minutes ago. This is what happens when you don't sleep well and you go, I've got plenty of time to just lie on the couch and rest my eyes before stream. And then you wake up and you're like, oh crud. So, hope everybody's having a good one. I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. A little fuzzy, but hello, Fid. Welcome. And Cave. Welcome. Beef! Hey, my friend, what's up? Hey, you Figment. That's you every single day. You wake up and you're like, who am I? So, I have done very little of what I normally do to prepare for a stream. So we're going to see how that runs, and we're going to see what happens. So yeah. Anyway, I just realized that
ركبني وكفلوا نوايو
okay.
ودخل
And yeah, just random stuff playing on the computer here. Okie dokie. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, maybe go to sleep at a normal hour and get that full 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So yeah, the thing about going to sleep at a normal hour is that here's what's been happening lately. I get to the end of the day and I look back at the day and I go, I didn't do a lot of the things that I was supposed to do. And then instead of going to bed, I basically try to force myself to have another, like a third wind or a fourth wind, and then work for a couple of hours, and then it's 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, yes, I should go to sleep now. And then I go to sleep, or go try to go to sleep, and then it's just like, anyway, it's not working. Pro tip: go to sleep so you don't have to wake up confused. Netran posting from Sweden, 2 a.m. Welcome, Metran. 2 a.m. is both too early and too late. Indeed. Hey, Joey, welcome. Says this while she also routinely goes to sleep at 1 a.m. on accident. Working the night shift. Oh, yeah. There we go. We got people from literally all over the world in the chat right now. And that is one of the glorious things about the old Twitch here, is that we can be both where we are and hanging out with other people, and it's just a cool thing. All right, so I guess I should stop just kind of extemporaneously rattling off garbage and actually do the show thingy. So the show is Adventures in History, where we talk about history in a way that is not boring. Or at least I think it's not boring. Some people might still think that it's super boring. I don't. I don't know how people would, but, not everybody has a sense of humor. Anyway, we goof off, we have a good time. Weird stuff comes up. We end up cross-referencing pop culture in there, and we end up creating this hodgepodge of weird imagery and nostalgic reference, and we talk about history in the process. So yeah, and on Thursday nights what we do is go through history chronologically, and we have been talking in the last few weeks about the period of time from about the year number 1, so the first year of the modern era, and we've been talking about this first century of the modern world, so 1 to 100. And this might be the last stream in this. I'm still trying to do a little bit of planning. We might have one more that covers some stuff going on over in the Americas, but that will be a couple of weeks from now. We've got a few special episodes coming up. So first off, special episode coming up. Assuming the power is on and the internet is on Saturday, we will be having a History of Middle-earth special episode. So I am a very large fan of J.R.R. Tolkien's created universe, and as a reward to the community, every 100 followers, we do a special episode where I talk about, basically Tolkien's world from the perspective of it being an actual history, which is sort of a fun little thing to have in your back pocket if you're a giant nerd like I am. But that will be happening at 1100 Central Standard Time. Again, assuming that everything is working. And now I've said that twice, and you go, why wouldn't it be? Well, there is a tropical depression that is currently moving its way through the Gulf of Mexico. It is either probably going to be a tropical storm in just a little while, or it already is. So tropical storm is a more organized weather system than a tropical depression is, and the next step up is a hurricane. It is not scheduled to make it as if it is a hurricane, but we're going to get a lot of rain on Saturday. You're in Georgia, you can pretend it's the country, not the state. Got a conversation exam in 10 minutes, but it's only one period long, so you'll be back 45 minutes. Cool. Are we talking like Egyptians or blessings the rain? We're talking about the Blemmyes are the people here. So it's Blemmyes on the rain. Like, Blemmyes on the rain. You know what I'm talking about. Tropical depression sounds like you on vacation. I like that. I appreciate that one very much, Metrand. So it might be raining a whole lot. The power might be out. The internet might be out on Saturday. We're going to pretend like it's not going to happen, and I'll just pretend like at 1100 Central Standard Time we're going to be here. And if something weird happens, I'll do what I can to try to get the word out. I don't have the title in the main screen. Do I not have the title in the main screen? It's quite possible that I forgot something. So can everybody see the title here? Stop trying to do stuff, computer. Did I not change my Twitch information? What does it say below me? Like right here it says Africa. Right? And then like roughly in that direction, so kind of like right in there, it should have the stream title, which should say, yeah, it says Kingdoms of the Upper Nile, or Blemmyes on the Rain. It's up there. You meant the Twitch main page. I'm looking at it, and it says that it's there. Yeah. Well. I don't know what you're seeing, bud. Alas. Okie dokie. Anyway, no, go away. Cool. Not you all. The weird pop-ups on my computer that continue to annoy me. Okay, well, the title itself is pretty long, so if you're on a mobile, it might be squished. I try to put the actual titles, or like the actual topic we're talking about first on the actual Twitch title, so that people just randomly scrolling through will actually be able to see what we're talking about, instead of seeing some weird pun that I've made. Because I want them to be able to at least get an idea. You're just like making me second guess yourself. Well, you know, again, I don't know if you were here right off the bat. I just woke up, so I was quite possibly goofing stuff up while being quasi-aware. So you're going to need a bigger boat. All right. Erka Durkee. So yeah, that's what's going to happen on Saturday. And next Thursday, we are going to have a special episode, which is sort of part of my wife's birthday gift. My wife gets to pick a viewer request stream for her birthday every year. And she has chosen to talk about the medieval Japanese culture. And we're going to look specifically at the way that everybody lived, stuff like their art and their religion and their lifestyle, which is a little bit different than the way that we sort of sometimes focus on stuff. We talk about culture a lot here as well, but I tend to focus on historical events in a chronological narrative instead of sort of a cultural viewpoint. And she likes the cultural aspect of stuff. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk about medieval Japan. I need to talk with her a little bit to narrow down exactly what window she's talking about when she says medieval Japan. I tried to do that this morning, right in the middle of her trying to write computer code, which was not the best time for me to start asking her detailed questions about Japanese history and having a very rude, it was a rude conversation. I was sort of not paying attention to what she was up to. So we'll talk about that. He woke up like this. Yeah, pretty much. All right, so we're going to talk about 3 different kingdoms today. These are going to be people that are... I am missing something. I'm missing a big important thing. Like down here, there's no world map. Look at there. I can't believe we made it this far without somebody mentioning that. Like, hey, where's the map? Oh, great googly moogly. So the region that we're looking at today is over here in Africa. But so far, when we've talked about Africa, except for a couple of viewer request episodes, we have mostly been talking about the Nile River Valley, because this is where one of the earliest civilizations of humanity shows up. Of course, the Egyptians are very, very ancient people, spinning the world. Yeah, it's like, wee. It's like that game where you were, well, when I was a kid, when we had globes where you would spin the globe and you'd try to put your finger on it. And yeah, because of Egypt. There's a lot of gravity around Egypt in the ancient world. It was a really big, really important zone. But they weren't alone in Africa. And especially by the time that we get to the period that we're talking about now, this 1st century, there are other people, especially down in this region of Africa, that are developing into organized kingdoms, and that these people are going to begin to have a lot of contact with the outside world. That should be a point redemption. Spin the globe. I don't know what we would do with that. Just literally just go, wee. I mean, I guess spin the globe and then stop and see if I could say something about whatever the thing landed on. Spinning the globe and get a random history fact about the most center country. Let's try that. Let me just turn the borders on, and I'm just going to try that. So let's zoom out a little bit. I'm going to grab the world. I'm going to give it a little bit of an unbalanced spin, and we'll see what happens here. So I'm going to try to spin it as fast as I can. And that didn't work at all. That didn't work either. Neither did that. It's really hard to spin this guy. Yeah, it doesn't spin very well. It's not a very free moving globe. I wonder if I could turn up the spin sensitivity somewhere. So in the modern world, the region that we're talking about today are going to be these three countries right here. This is the country of Sudan. Well, I guess 4 countries, because Sudan is now 2 countries. There's Sudan and South Sudan. But here's Sudan, here is Ethiopia, and this country right here is Eritrea. So this zone in the pocket right here up the Nile River is going to be the topic of discussion for tonight. And I do need to remind everybody that the Nile flows from south to north. So when we say upriver on the Nile, we're actually talking about stuff that is south, further south in Africa. So this is upriver for the Nile. Hey, Martest. So I've got a bit of it's not a bone to pick, but it's a lighthearted and friendly scolding. Because there are frequent moments when I have friends in the chat that do streaming, and I go, who else streams? Did I miss anybody streaming? That, you know, because I try to recognize everybody that is a streamer in the chat, so that we can all go follow everybody, right? So that we can all sort of cross-pollinate and we can grow our community and everybody can go hang out and be chill in other people's streams. And every time that I've said that, Martest has never mentioned that Martest does streaming. So I am going to do this and say, everybody go follow Martest. Because you can't hide anymore. I figured you out. I started figuring out who else is posting going live announcements and other people's streams, and I found you. So everybody go follow Martest. And I even watched some VODs. You can't hide forever. And next time you're streaming and I'm streaming, I'm going to raid you too. Oh, okay. Because you're never here when I said it. Okay. I will allow that to be the excuse. I will allow that. Okay. Maybe it was just a happenstance. So everybody go follow Martest. And we'll have some new friends coming your direction. So, all right. I'm losing my brain. Let's talk about some kingdoms. So, does Google Earth have an I'm feeling lucky option? Wow. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe if I could go over here and just type random. So I literally just went to Google Earth and searched random. You stream late, though, because of work. Ah, I see. Well, we will all keep our eyes open. There's that website that drops you somewhere randomly and you have to figure out where you are. Yeah, that's like, I can't remember what that is, Cave. But it's only on the web, not on the app. Okay, well, I'll look into that. We'll see. Because if it's a whole other thing, well, anyway. That's not a bad idea, though. GeoGuessr, yes. I spent too much time on that one night. Okay, so right around here. Egypt, but what about here? Well, the first group of people that we are going to talk about tonight is a group called Meroe. And they are going to be a fairly ancient group of people. And when we look at them in a historical narrative, they're going to be referred to as a few different groups. But most notably, the Egyptians are going to refer to them as Cushites. And this, again, has nothing to do with marijuana. Hey, a capacitor. I don't sleep very much. We actually talked about that earlier of our test, so there we go. Cushites, not related to marijuana, but these are people that had a long history with the Egyptians. They had fought with the Egyptians for hundreds of years back when Egypt was developing during its period of time. They had, during certain periods of Egyptian history, conquered parts of Egypt, and during a particularly rough patch in Egyptian history, they had even ruled Egypt. And by the time we get to around the what we call the later kingdom, there's going to be an Egyptian pharaoh named Psamtik, who is this guy. Oh, I wonder if I'm going to get in trouble because I'm showing man nipples. Anyway, it's a statue. It's not a real nipple. But alas. Anyway, so Psamtik is going to pretty much end the Egyptian occupation by the Cushites, and they're going to sort of be pushed back down into their region, and they're going to have themselves in these little kingdom based around a capital city called Napata. Nipple. Yeah, ban the guy. Everybody just be cool. Just be quiet. Don't say anything about the nipple. So their capital city for a while was this place called Napata. And there are a few remains that are still there today. This again is in Sudan. This is one of the really unfortunate things about a lot of pretty cool ancient history. The remains of Napata are not very safe to go visit. Sudan is a pretty war-torn place. There are parts of the country that are, secure and fine, but even in the big cities, crime is very high. Tourists are frequently targeted for things like robbery, including armed robbery. So even though I would love to go see a lot of this stuff, it's probably on the list of not really the best thing to go try to do. But there are some ruins at Napata, including part of what is an ancient temple, which you can see here, which is pretty cool. And the temples that the people of Meroe, so you're speaking of the USA. Yes? Question mark? Let me just say this. When I was doing research yesterday to see if I could actually get to Sudan, because I would really, really actually love to go there, the federal government website, so the United States State Department runs a website that basically gives you travel advice for all of the different countries of the world. And one of the things that the State Department website said about Sudan was that United States government workers in Sudan are not allowed to travel unless they're traveling in an armored vehicle. So that should serve as a bit of a kind of a notice. Yeah, so here's a pretty cool temple. This was at the city of Napata. There are some other remains there that you can go see if you are really, really brave. Armored bicycle. I don't know what an armored bicycle would look like, but that would be really interesting. And Toto too. Hey DJ. Did I say hey capacitor? Hey capacitor. And hey Vern. I don't know if I said hey Vern. Welcome Vern. So that's really going to be the reign of Samtech and the retreat back up to Napata are going to be basically establishing a status quo, and the people of this area are going to effectively live in more or less harmony with the Egyptians for quite some time, especially during what we refer to as the Ptolemaic period of Egypt. This is when Alexander the Great moves through, and all of the various Ptolemy leaders, the successive dynasty of Ptolemy, are ruling Egypt. They and the Kushites are going to get around each other okay. There's going to be some border spats here and there, but they're mostly going to be in more or less a trading relationship. And when the Egyptians are going to take over, when the Romans are going to start pushing on Egypt, there's actually going to be a move further south, and we're going to end up with a capital here at Meroe. Where's my image? Do I have an image? Here we go. So here is what we're talking about when I say moving south to Meroe. And by the way, you knew you were going to get a map. So what we're looking at here, this is, again, the border here with Egypt. This is Sudan. Here's the Red Sea. This, of course, is the Nile. Napata is right around here, but Meroe is going to end up being the new capital. So once the big changeover starts happening, and Egypt falls to Alexander the Great, and then the Ptolemies end up taking over, the Kushites are going to move their capital down here to Meroe, and that is going to be somewhere right around the year 300 BC. And from that point forward, it's fairly common to refer to them as either the Kingdom of Meroe or the Meroitic Kingdom. Just imagine the word erotic with M in front of it, and yes, I thought about using that as a title for the stream, but I'd try to keep this PG, maybe PG-13 at a stretch. So using Meroitic as a part of the stream title just seemed a bit over the line, if you will. Anyway, so Meroe becomes a pretty big city, and it doesn't take too long for it to not only become the physical capital where the kings are living, but also the religious capital. And that happens a little bit later, several decades after it becomes the official political capital, that it becomes the religious capital as well. And this is an important thing to understand. In a lot of the ancient cultures, especially in cultures like here in Meroe, or say in Egypt, or even in Greece to a certain extent, certain cities are just the centers of religion. For a very, very long time, the pharaohs lived up in the northern part of Egypt, but the religious center was further south in the city of Thebes, because there were really important religious temples there. Thebes was the center of some of the really important religious cults. Same thing in Greece. If you look at certain cities were just more religiously important. You have the city of Dodona in Greece, which is one of the earliest religious centers. But then you have Delphi. Everybody has, well, you might be familiar with the oracle at Delphi. That was an oracle was a religious place where you would go to get word from the gods, and Delphi was sort of a religious center, even though Greece was, kind of a larger group. Kind of sounds like Neurotic, which is the kingdom you would rule. Or Britannia. There we go. So having a physical capital and then having a religious capital where a lot of the religious activity goes is fairly common in the ancient world. So when the centers and the cult centers move from Napata to Meroe, that is also when the sort of official graveyards of the kings start showing up in Meroe. And that's when the real center is made, and when the kingdom becomes sort of centered around that capital. And this is, again, happening mostly between about 300 BC and about 200 BC. That is for your birthday next week, so... It did come up today, though. Oh, Japanese cheesecake was a topic of conversation in last stream. And Brittany... Vern sent Brittany a link to this bakery in New York that makes Japanese cheesecakes, and Brittany and I both were just sort of sitting there like, because they look so delicious. You should become an oracle. Yeah. So what you need to become an oracle, usually some sort of geographically important space. So maybe if you have a big hill or a solo mountain peak, or if there is a big cave, or perhaps a seismically active zone, maybe a hot spring. You need something to be the ambiance setter for your oracledom. You have a place nearby with killer pizza. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's what draws people, is the killer pizza. And then while there, they can apply to Metrand for an oracle reading, and you can predict their future. It would not be the worst oracle ever. So you can actually go see Meroe, and there are pretty cool temples there, like this one. Read the signs in the pepperoni. Yes, that's it. You have them bring their pizza to you, and you open the lid of the box up, and based on the billowy cloud of steam, Napata gives way to Meroe. Meroe has really cool temples. You can go see some of those still. Speak not of the cheesecake. But when Rome takes over, Meroe is going to start trading with them. And the particular trade goods that Meroe is going to bring are iron and wood. So in the period that we're talking about, the region where Meroe is located, again, it's right about here. This had much more natural forest stuff kicking. There were a lot more trees in that area. Also, they had a fairly big stretch of territory that went down here where there were also more trees. It's fair to remember that the Sahara Desert is expanding and has been expanding for about the last 2,000 years. So it used to be much more green than it is now. You still have much to learn, it seems, but you'll be an oracle by the next time. All right, Metrand, that's your homework. Properly predict at least 3 things by next stream. I predict I'm going to fail. What's the meme? Like, I wasn't expecting that, but I also wasn't expecting to expect anything, so it doesn't count. Anyway, Rome takes over in Egypt under Caesar Augustus, and there is a little bit of an interesting exchange. We don't know exactly what happened. How is it that these ruins are so well preserved? Is it because they are so remote? That's part of it. It's also because by the time the population started growing in these areas, the centers of population had moved much closer to the coast, and it's also because the desert is just good at preserving things. It's very dry, it's very arid, so very similar to Egypt. It's good for preserving stuff left out in the middle of it. But, as I was saying, we don't know exactly what happened between Meroe and Rome, but it might have been that Rome tried to force Meroe into being a client kingdom. There are a few pieces of evidence that suggest that when the Ptolemies finally fell and Rome took over, that Augustus sort of expected the kingdom of Meroe to kind of bend the knee to Rome. It might have been that he expected taxation out of them. But we really don't completely know exactly what was going on. But we do know that there was a war. And the war started... And you all know that I can't type and talk at the same time, so give me just a second. There was a queen in Meroe, and her name was Amanirenas, and she is going to decide that Rome has become a bit too big for its britches. And Amanirenas is actually going to invade Roman Egypt, and does so with a very large army, and is targeting a specific part of Egypt, which is a place called Aswan. And if we look at this big thing right here, this is all part of this big lake right here. I need to zoom out. That's what I need to do. This big lake is part of a man-made lake called Lake Nasser, but there was a city in this area called Aswan, and now it is the site of the Aswan High Dam, which is what made Lake Nasser. It's something that creates electrical power for Egypt in a modern sense. But back in the day, there were cities right in here, and we'll actually talk about some of those in just a bit. But Amanirenas is going to raid up to Aswan and sack the city. And there was a big temple at Aswan. Actually, there were several very, very big temples, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a bit. But there had been this big statue erected to Augustus, and Amanirenas is going to chop the head off of the statue. And she brings it back to Meroe and buries it under the steps of one of their temples. And it just so happens that we found it. Archaeologically, it has been excavated, and here it is. Marilyn Meroe. You can predict Shane will probably be there. You predict there will be history. You predict there will be at least one disconnection. Aww. Yeah, it's staring at your soul. You can't write Meroe without Rome. War. War never changes. Yeah, so it's made out of copper, so it's actually rusted. He looks pretty sad. It's almost like not fun to have your head removed. Right. So the head gets chopped off. It gets brought back to Meroe. It gets buried under the steps. And then when some British people were excavating Meroe, they're like, hey, look, it's that thing that we have reference to in history. And now that head is in the British Museum. One of the things that I would like to go see, it's referred to as the Augustus of Meroe, because it's just a head. It looks like he's responding to being decapitated. Right. So how do you think Rome is going to respond to that? And the answer, you know, Rome does not respond very well. Rome is going to counter-invade, and they are going to push up the river as far as the old capital of Napata, and Rome is going to sack Napata and sort of establish a new border. They're actually going to take a little bit of the land from Meroe, and this is mostly because when the Romans show up, the Romans don't really show up to play. There's going to be a new boundary marker established, and they sort of go back to just trading on decent terms. That is going to work out for the next several decades. Amani Reynes is eventually going to pass away. By the way, if you have read a lot of ancient texts, which I don't know if you have or have not, you might have run into a reference to the Queen of Ethiopia, who is named Candace. And Candace is actually a Greek misinterpretation of the Meroitic word for queen, which is actually Kandake, because Rome changes K's to C's and then makes C's into S's because, that's what it was. Who hasn't read lots of documents? Anyway, if you've ever heard reference to Queen Candace of Ethiopia, it's probably not actually a woman's name. It's a Latin translation of a Greek interpolation of the actual title of Kandake. So the queens of Meroe were called Kandake. Hey, Allie. Welcome. King Regis of Rome. Right. It's like, wait a second, but doesn't Regis just, doesn't that mean king? Exactly. Words are crazy, and there are stories behind them. But anyway, so I apologize, I can't speak and type. Ooh, wow, that threw the whole thing off. I'll have to recenter here. Her name is long. Anyway, the next reference that we have to a queen of Meroe is Amani Katasan. And she is a few generations later, queen near the desert, if we go for the proximity of the Sahara. Pretty name, yeah, pretty much. Amani Kadashan. And I'm hanging it over all. Oh, I can do this. I can boom. Check that. Now it fits. I can just do that. You don't frequently run into words that long. But I like that. It works. Okay. Amani Katashan. So, who is Amani Kadashan? Well, again, she's a queen. And it is fair to note here, I should pause. There are a lot of ruling queens in Meroe. And this is not something that was a fluke for about 5 or 6 rulers in a row. And then several more after that, spaced out through time, you see queens ruling in their own right. There are references to the warrior queens of Meroe in history. It's not just Amani Reynes and now I'm trying to say all of their names, but I don't need to say all of their names. I need to stay on track here and stop chasing rabbits. I really enjoy this period of time, and I have a trouble sometimes just saying what I need to say, and not instead of saying all of the stuff, because if I say all of the stuff, we'll be here forever. And I'm already running over because I'm already throwing in too much stuff, but yeah, it's okay. Anyway, Amani Kadashan is going to be visited by some ambassadors. And these ambassadors are going to have been sent by everybody's favorite neck-bearded emperor, this guy. That's right, I figured out another way to show Nero. Ha ha ha. For those of you that haven't been around for the last few episodes, I have been trying to find ways to shoehorn Nero into the conversation so that I can share his majestic neckbeard. So here's Nero and his majestic neckbeard. Hey, you Finesse Fantasy. Did I say hey to everybody? Yeah, I think I said hey to everybody. So Nero sends some ambassadors down to Mero and they ask for a tour. Like, can you show us your kingdom? We want to be more friendly. We want to know more about you. And we're coming down here to check up with you all. And Amani Kadashan is like, okay. And shows these two guys around and takes them up the river and takes them to basically the beginning of what would have been the rainforest zone. And the Romans are like, yeah, this is nice. This is cool. Can you show us where all the gold comes from? And she's like, Regnal side eye. Why do you want to know? And they're like, we're just interested. No, why don't you all go back to Rome and say that we were really, really nice to you and we were all friendly. But I think the tour is done now. Because what we don't know for certain is exactly what these Romans were there for. But even some of the ancient historical writers say, yeah, Nero was totally trying to plan out an invasion, and these guys weren't actually ambassadors, they were spies. And he wanted to know where all the stuff was so that when he showed up, he could direct the army to the critical points of the kingdom so that, you show up and you secure the gold mines, or, when you first show up and you invade Iraq, you want to lock down the oil wells first. I didn't say invade Iraq to take it over. But if you were going to invade never mind, we're not going there either. Yeah. But Amani Kadashan does seem to be fairly friendly with Rome. Nero ends up dying / getting killed. It depends on how you see it, whether or not he was actually committing suicide. He got his bodyguard, well, not even his bodyguard, his secretary to kill him because he didn't want to kill himself. But a couple of emperors later, we get this guy named Titus. This is the Emperor Titus. We talked about him last week. But prior to being emperor, Titus was involved in a big war against the Jewish rebels in the Levantine region. And Amani Kadashan sent him a bunch of horseback archers. Yes, he has very big hands because he was a big man. So the Nero invasion didn't happen. Nero died, but Mero seems to be on fairly friendly terms with Rome even after that because, you get reinforced when you're fighting a big war. The number that they sent wasn't necessarily specifically recorded. It wasn't probably some gigantic amount of soldiers. Even a token distance, though, is a token force is pretty big over that distance. So they would have been coming from all the way down here, going all the way up here. So that's a pretty honking far way to travel if you're in the ancient world, especially when you're having to travel with horses and all the gear and stuff like that. You can't even get your secretary to bring you coffee. You don't have a secretary, but still, right. So Nero... The story, and I shared this earlier a couple streams ago, but it's worth sharing again. Nero was about to get killed by his bodyguard because he was a giant jerk face. And he decided that he wanted to kill himself, but he had escaped with some of his sort of sycophantic followers. And he's like, okay, look, I want to kill myself. And they're like, if that's what you want to do, you go do your thing. And he's like, well, why don't one of you kill yourselves first and show me how to do it? And then I'll do it after I get an example. And none of them wanted to volunteer to kill themselves. So the bad guys were getting pretty close. So he basically pushed the sword into the hands of his secretary and was like, look, I want to die, kill me. And so the guy stabbed him. And that's how Nero died. Interesting dude, Nero. But alas. Oh, before we go, I do have some pretty neat stuff to show you. So hard to get good help back then, right? Wouldn't that make your own secretary? Wouldn't that make you your own secretary? Wouldn't that actually mean that you need to bring your own coffee, or do you even drink coffee? Okay, I'm not getting in between that mess. One of the cool things about the leaders of Meroe is that they have really cool tombs, and we're going to look at some of those in a bit. But I actually have a picture of this thing. This was an altar that was inside the pyramid of Amadi Kadashan. And it's pretty cool. Neat piece of artwork here. We have the god Anubis and the goddess Nephthys. These are actually Egyptian gods, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But they are pouring out libation offerings here, and we can see around the edge that we have really cool hieroglyphic writing, because even though the people in Meroe had their own language, they also wrote in Egyptian hieroglyphics, especially when it came to burying their dead. But this actually came out of her pyramid. And you go, but wait, I thought the Egyptians were the pyramid building people. And they were. The pyramids in Egypt are, pretty big, and you can go still see them today. But there are actually more pyramids in Sudan today than there are pyramids in Egypt. And this is something that, again, it doesn't get talked about a lot. When you hear the word pyramid, everybody immediately just mentally goes to the Great Pyramids of Giza. And that's fine. I'm not trying to guilt anybody you don't even think about Sudan. I mean, it's okay, right? Nobody should ever feel bad. But the history of the thing doesn't line up with Egypt having the most pyramids. In fact, the capital city of the Kingdom of Meroe, that city being Meroe, has fields full of pyramids. Here are some of them. And you can look at them and you go, but wait, those don't even look as big as the ones in Egypt. And they weren't, and that's okay. They were also built on a different angle. So you can see that these are sort of more slanted and pointy than the pyramids in Egypt. But the city of Meroe alone has about 100 of these. And these were buildings dedicated to the royal family, to individuals that were very, very wealthy. And if you went inside of them, they would look a lot like the way that the tombs of the Egyptians were built. It's almost as if the pyramids were a rather logical way to stack big stones on each other for a big structure. Yeah. So the angle that we're looking at here, how old are those pyramids? Those are not as old as the pyramids in Giza. So the pyramids at Giza and the pyramid builders of ancient Egypt were way back in the Old Kingdom. That's usually going to be dated to the 3rd dynasty, where this guy named Djoser decides to start building pyramids. And then, of course, you have the big 3 at Giza of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. And then about several dozen more spread out across the Old Kingdom. But by the time we get to the end of the Old Kingdom, which is about the 5th dynasty, and that period of time, by the way, is in the late 2000s BC, or sorry, the early 2000s BC. You're not really going to start keep seeing pyramids. So these pyramids that are being built are about 2,000 years later, being built by the Kingdom of Meroe. There were some Kushite pyramids that were substantially older that went back into probably the 1000 BC range or so, but even those are about 1200 to 1300 years younger than the pyramids in Egypt. So the pyramids in Egypt are older, and it is very clear that the people that were Kushite and then later the people of the Kingdom of Meroe are borrowing these ideas from the Egyptians, but they're still pyramids, and they're still wicked cool, and I'd still love to go see them, right? What a cute little pyramid. Ha, a cute, ha, 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 ha. I see what you did there. So, I have another picture, and I just skipped past it. So here are some more. And this is an ancient pyramid that has been partially reconstructed. And then this guy right here is actually a new thing that they're doing in Sudan, which is kind of rebuilding things and replastering things to make them appear as if they would have in the ancient world. The pyramid that was here was completely destroyed and was basically just a giant pile of rubble. So it's not as if they are destroying anything specifically important to history. If we could zoom in to the inside of this doorway, they actually tried to preserve as much of the original structure as they could when they were building over this. I am of mixed feelings when it comes to stuff like this. Well, Joey, I am pegging out in the red right now. So, like, I've already turned the volume up when I do photos. I could try to look at the microphone more, maybe. But yeah, I'm pushing little squares into the red. And people are texting me. I thought I'd turn my phone on silent. Anyway, and it's a pointless text anyway. Okay, so again, what I was saying is I don't know how I feel about these reconstructions. Part of me is okay with preserving what's there. Part of me is also understanding that what they're trying to do is give somebody a better impression of what it would have looked like. Not everybody in the world has a perfect visualization. I could describe to you what these would have looked like back in the ancient world when they had their plaster coating on them, but not everybody can just go, oh, I know immediately exactly what that seems like. I'm a little bit up in the air about this stuff. So, did they recreate these processes using traditional techniques? That is another part of the problem. They're not really doing it the way that they would have done it in the ancient world. They're using modern substances like modern concrete, modern plaster. Had they been doing it with manual labor in the ancient way, based on examples that they have, because there are dozens and dozens of examples of how these things would have been built, that would have made it a little bit easier for me to get behind. I don't know how I feel, though, about people building on top of ancient stuff. There's another reference that I can give you of this. When I was in Greece a couple of summers ago and went to the palace at Knossos, as a big palace of the ancient Minoans. The government of Greece has built over the top of the ruins of Knossos. And a lot of the stuff that you go look at in Knossos today is completely inaccurate. It is a best guess estimate of what it would have looked like. A lot of the murals that they're showing you on the walls as authentic were actually repainted by people in the early 1900s. It's sort of almost like a Disneyland to me, and I felt really uncomfortable in Knossos because I knew that even the stuff that I was walking on top of was more historically important than the reconstructions that they had around you. But it is definitely a tourist attraction, and I understand the logic that they use behind doing it that way, but that doesn't sit with me. It's doable unless aliens. Yeah, aliens. It's almost preserving the techniques and studying what may have been true or not. Yeah, and again, if they had done it that way, like, we're going to try to, like, we have this particular pyramid. It is completely ruined. We know everything about it. We've studied everything that there is to know about it. It's in really, really bad shape, and we're going to try to put it back together using different techniques. That would have been different than, we've got this thing over here that we really want to show off to some tourists, so we're going to rebuild it and make it look legit. Like Guadalon Castle, yeah. What do you mean the hotel was built on an ancient burial ground? Yeah, lies! Exactly. So you can go see these, and it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You have to fly into Khartoum, and they actually have an entire system of infrastructure to get you from Khartoum, which is the capital of Sudan, up to Meroe. Most of the... Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can actually zoom in here. Let me just type it instead of having to go find it. No. Yes, I want to go to the pyramids. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. And we'll turn this off. So you can look here. And this, again, the program that I'm using is Google Earth. And all of these little things that we're looking at, all of this stuff, and then these, and all of this stuff, and then a lot of this stuff, those are all pyramids. This is a big cluster of them right here. If we zoomed in, you could see, look at all the little buildings. Look at all them pyramids. So they are all over this location. There's some right there again. Let's see. Yep, there's some right there. A few out here. And some ruins up here. There are a couple over there. So anyway, you can go see this stuff if you're brave and if you really want to. Travel to Sudan is pretty cheap, by the way, because they're trying to incentivize people going there. And they actually have spent a lot of money trying to turn this into a tourist location. And there are still tens of thousands of people that go there. It better make sure they don't use your chibi Anubis as a mascot. Well, funny that you mentioned that. What's up with the religion of these people of Meroe? Well, they were pretty Egyptian when it came down to it. They practiced a religion that looked very, very similar. They used a lot of the same gods. We've already seen their architecture that looks pretty similar. Their language was different. They had their own individual Meroitic language, and it's called Meroitic. And they had their own written language as well, which looks like this. So this is a tablet that has been constructed, or that has, been written on with the Meroitic language and Meroitic script. And if you know about ancient Egyptian Demotic, there's some similarities between these two. The people in Meroe also wrote with Egyptian hieroglyphs. If you remember me showing you that tablet from the queen's tomb. But you also see Demotic, which is sort of like shorthand hieroglyphics. You see that popping up as well. But this is the language that they wrote in, that they spoke. So they had their own stuff too. Not just copying everything off of Egypt. All right. Again, their government is run by kings and queens. They do have a pretty important religious aspect. Their priests at various times in their history have a lot of political sway, especially when the royal families are having tiffs, fights between brothers, who's going to be the heir, who's going to get to take the throne. During that period of time, the priesthood has a lot of sway because they get to decide who gets to be king or who gets to be queen because they have the favor of the gods. And you know how this is. It's like a modern-day presidential candidate in the United States getting endorsed by the pastor of a mega church, right? What about Darfur in Western Sudan? Isn't it dangerous? Yes. The border between Sudan and Chad, which is the neighboring country. Borders, boop. So this country is Chad. This region right here is Darfur. This sort of western corner of Sudan is where Darfur is. And Chad right here is this border zone is pretty violent. Also, down here along the border between South Sudan and Sudan is fairly violent. And this region right here, this little zone, is AiH. When we zoom in, we see here that it's got a red border around it. This designates that it is a disputed zone. Both South Sudan and Sudan claim AiH. And they're very much actively fighting over it. control of that zone. So there's a lot of violence, unfortunately, going on in Sudan at the time. And a big reason behind that is their borders were not drawn by native Sudanese people. The borders of Sudan were drawn by the British when they took over that area and colonized it in the 1800s. So when they left, they're like, hey, here's your country. And then people that are from very, very different backgrounds of life and different ethnic groups and different religious groups and different linguistic groups all have to try to work together to create a country, and it doesn't always work very well. There are certain things that are kind of irreconcilable differences when it comes to ethnic tension. So that's what drives a lot of the problem in Sudan, is leftover stuff from colonialization forcing a lot of disparate people groups into one big glob. And it's unfortunate. That happens in a lot of countries in Africa as well. All right, so that is the Kingdom of Meroe. But we have two more, and they're not quite as well developed, but I did want to mention them because both of them are going to become important players later on down the line. So that's an E. Blemmyes, which is Blemmyes on the Rain. Blemmyes on the Rain. You all know that I try to do puns, so there's a good one for you. By the way, this is not in reference to the cryptid Blemmyes. There is an ancient cryptid mentioned by the Greeks, which was basically a humanoid that didn't have a head. Their faces were basically on their chest, so they had kind of stump bodies. You can Google that if you want to. Cryptids are fun, and I enjoy them, but that's not the Blemmyes we're talking about. The group that we're talking about is actually originally, if we look back in time, they sort of get lumped in with the general title Nubia. So the Egyptians called basically everybody in this whole region down here sort of clumped together names. This is not something that happens just in modern day where we go, oh, those people are insert one word label. The Egyptians did that as well. So Nubians were lots of people down in here, but the specific group that we're talking about are people that live here along the Red Sea coastline, especially in this zone that's sort of right around this area of Aswan and then the coastline. So Meroe, if we remember, is more based on the actual region right here around the Nile River. The Blemmyes are going to be mostly along the coast and in this really rough area. And they're going to be less centralized. They're going to have some pretty big cities, but a lot of the people that are going to ethnically identify as Blemmyes in the ancient world are going to be either semi-nomadic or actually fully nomadic. And they are most closely related to a group of people today called the Beja. So if you do any African research and you're looking for the modern day descendants of these people, it's either the Beja or the Medjay. And there's a little bit of debate that we won't get into about who's ethnically related to whom. There's a lot of different ethnic groups in Africa. Blemmyes, aren't those the tourists that come in to New Jersey shore and some are from New York? No, not Magi. The word is Medjay. Medjay. But close. They aren't Zoroastrian fire-worshipping priests. They are the Medjay. So I mentioned that these people had a few cities, and this is going to be one of the more unfortunate parts of our discussion tonight, because unfortunately, a lot of the cities that were in the sort of region that would have been in the sphere of influence of the Blemmyes are now underwater. Again, in the early 1900s, the Egyptian government decided that they wanted to build a hydroelectric dam on the Nile River. and that backs up a lot of water. And 3 of the really big cities that were populated by people that would have been Blemmyes are now underwater. And to top that off, a couple of these cities, 2 of them, Faris and Balana, weren't completely excavated. So the only work at the city of Faris, and I could type these here so that you know what I'm saying. Faris is one of the cities, and Balana is another one of the cities. Homonyms of history, right? You played some of Assassin's Creed Origins. Weren't Medjai also something Guardian-esque warrior something? So there were a group of nomadic desert people called Medjai. And the main character was one of the Medjai. But that word meant something slightly different in Egypt because they were using it in the game as a regional governor or as a like a sort of police sheriff kind of guy. Your Oracle skills aren't the best yet. That's okay. The Assassin's Creed games are remarkable for the amount of history that they get right, which makes it so weird that they screw up some of the really basic stuff that they screw up. It's like you put all of this attention to detail, and yet you go do that. Right? Yeah, sort of like a magistrate. So Faris and Balana were both really big. They had a lot of Blemmy people living in there. They are now completely underwater. And you can't see any of their remains because they are under this lake. They are under Lake Nasser. There were a couple of brief efforts at doing some archaeology in these locations in the 1920s before they built the big dam. But the Egyptian government recognized that these cities weren't necessarily Egyptian, so they weren't like super excited about it. You know, like if the Egyptians were going to do state-run archaeology, they were going to do stuff on Egyptian history, not necessarily these other people way up the river. We meant to get that wrong. Right? Why did they build their cities in the lake? Well, they used to have gills, and they could, you know, they were sort of like fish people, and they could live both in and out of the water. So to them, it wasn't that big of a deal. But, you know, then when the desert sort of rolled in, they just decided, we'll just abandon the city. Hard to march an army through the ocean. Or they were fish people. Figment, you know they were fish people. Come on. En's mouth intensifies. So we don't have anything from Faris or Balana. You can't go see either one of them. None of the temples remain. None of the buildings remain. The only thing that came out of those cities were a few artifacts that are in some museums that are indicative of the Blemmyes culture. We do have one interesting situation here. This is the same for 2 things, but one of their cities was this big thing called Kalabsha. Kalabsha was a big religious ceremonial city. It was sort of like their religious capital. And a lot of people would travel in from the desert and from the rough places to Kalabsha to do religious stuff during particular times of the year. You know, so your big ceremonies, your summer solstice, your winter solstice, your changing of the times and all that fun stuff, your sacrifice days for your big gods. And one of their gods was this guy named Mandulus. Mandulus looks like this. Ba-da-ba. This is the god Mandulus. And you go, that guy looks like a bird. Well, he's a bird with the head of a man. And you go, well, isn't that already something that the Egyptians use? Well, it is, but to the Blemmyes, this was different. They were Egypt adjacent, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were completely Egyptian, right? Why weren't they included in potential Atlantis sites? We don't acknowledge the fish people. The History Channel does that, right? Protect your local fish people. If you see something, say something. Hey, Tuna, welcome. I can end the stream now. No, we've actually got a little bit left. Medullus oblongatus. Have you heard about the bird? The bird is the word. No, they're not bird people. Their god was Mandulus. And at the city of Kalabsha, there was this big temple to him. And when they were planning the lake and planning what was going to get flooded, there were certain things that they decided that they were going to save. And actually, the temple of Mandulus was one that they decided to save. So here's what they did. They went to the temple and dismantled it and numbered all of the blocks and did a whole bunch of basically creating a human-sized Lego set, and then moved the entire temple from the floodplain up to a hill by the lake. So you can actually go still see the temple at Kalabsha. It looks like this. It feels like irrigation technology should have made that unnecessary. Well, it's not necessarily for irrigation purposes. It's for hydroelectricity. Egypt was trying to build an infrastructure grid that did not rely on outside energy production. And they didn't have a lot of coal to burn, so they wanted to make hydroelectricity. Are you not entertained? Is that not why you are here? Welcome, Angel. Oh, check it out. Angel's got him some little emotes. Look at there. It's a little angel. Welcome, friends. How are you? Angel, how was the stream? What were you up to? Are you still playing Alien Isolation? We need to do all of the shout-outs. I think it is time to do all of the shout-outs. So, shout-out of honor goes to our friend Angel, who just rated in with all of his lovely viewers. You should go check out Angel. Angel does gaming streams, very chill stream, very cool guy. And if you like accents, there you go. Still playing, got the flamethrower. Oh, yes. You burn that angel. Not you burn that angel, you burn that alien. He's playing Alien Isolation right now, which is a game that we've talked about quite a bit that freaks me out. Who else do we have? We've got Allie Briggs in the house. Go check out Allie Briggs, who does amazing art, fantasy art, frequently does dragon stuff, but also does character stuff. Has a really great community with lots of people that are interested and open-minded. I am constantly amazed at how much people in Allie's chat and Allie herself can talk about with open minds there on Twitch. So I think that if you are in my community and enjoy the fact that we can talk about stuff from history and religion and philosophy and politics and still be friends at the end of it, I think you'll definitely fit in over with Allie's stream. And her art is just like... so go give Allie a follow. We've got the Cave Geek in the house. Cave Geek, very good friend of the show. Cool guy. Does art in a way that you will probably never see anybody else do, on original buck tanned leather with a pyrography tool, which makes it three-dimensional. And I have unfortunately made the habit, well, maybe not unfortunately, you frequently find me there, wall of texting weird stuff. I think the other night we went through well, I won't recount all of the conversation. I just know that a couple of nights ago, I ranted about everything from Lord of the Rings, old Tolkien history, to versions of the Christian Bible, to, well, I don't know if I want to talk about all the stuff that we talked about in Caves Geeks. Anyway, go check out Cave Geek. Who else do we have here? Who else? Oh, there's the tuna. Go give Big Tuna Neil a follow. Does art stuff. Occasionally plays some games, but is a really cool dude. Super chill, laid back guy with wisdom and wit. You lure me in with conversations with nerdy or dirty things. True. And I saw Emmy come in. Color by Emmy. If you love the cute little Adventure Shane animation down in the corner there, that is brought to you by Color by Emmy. Really great streamer, does a variety of different artistic stuff. Sometimes it's logo design, sometimes it is stuff that might be more like comic art, other times it's animation stuff, but you won't have a bad time there either. I hope that is everybody. I hope that I haven't left anybody out. Oh, there's Bubba World Comics. I forgot about Bubba. Hey, Bubba. Bubba World Comics, friend of the channel, is a fellow Mississippi streamer. And Bubba is just a man of multiple talents. He makes puppets. And when I say puppets, I mean stuff as simple as he has drawn things and like sort of attach them to clothespins to move the mouth, to actual puppetry puppets. He has a comic strip world with dozens and dozens of individually created characters. Some of my favorites are the rednecks in space. If you've ever thought of what a spaceship would look like with dual exhaust and a big grill on the front of it, go check out Bubba World Comics while he's streaming, and you might be able to convince him to show you some of his Rednecks in Space comics. They are pretty honkin' funny. And he can write in hieroglyphics, which is something that I absolutely admire. All of the stream love. Yeah, people are cool people, and I like making sure that everybody hangs out with cool people and knows about cool people. So, anyway, we are talking about people in Africa tonight, and specifically people here along the Nile River, and specifically a group of people called the Blemmyes, whose big cities were mostly flooded by the Egyptians when the Egyptians built the Aswan High Dam. And we're talking specifically about the Temple of Kalabsha, which again is this right here. And you can actually see the lake in the background, like right here, and then a little bit over here, you can see where the lake is. But they saved the temple, and you can still go see it today. I'm being visited by a puppy. I don't know why I'm being visited by a puppy. Do you all want to see the puppy? I know you all want to see the puppy. I'm in a good mood, so let's have some free puppy. You want to come this way? You want to come and see me? Come on. Come on. There we go. Hey. What you doing? Oh, thank you for the sugars. Where are you going? Where are you going? Okay, well, I guess that was it. I guess it was just a very quick hey, and I got like 3 little face sugars, and that was it. Okay, so there's Let's Slip the Puppy of War. Yes, the Puppy of War indeed. And we will share the Puppy of War emotes in chat. Her name is Kaylee, and she is a rotten mess, as most puppies are. And sometimes she just likes to come in and sniff and make sure that I remember that she's alive. Okay, so Kalabsha was another one of the big cities of the Blemmyes people, and the last one is Philae. That is so it's spelled Kaylee like Kaylee Fry, She is named after Kaylee Fry, the mechanic aboard the Firefly-class ship Serenity. Kaylee Fry is my wife's favorite character from Serenity, so that's where Kaylee comes from. So, if you've ever seen Serenity, there you go. So Philae. Philae was another one of these cities that was scheduled to be flooded, and inside of the city of Philae there was a giant temple to Isis. So the Blemmyes had some of their own gods, but clearly the big gods of Egypt had some impact, and this is another one of the temples that they managed to save. They took it out of the water basin and moved it to an island, and so you can now go see this. Ba-da-ba. It should be everyone's favorite character. Kaylee is a great character on the show. I do have to admit, she is a great character. No joke. I don't know if she's my favorite character, but picking a favorite character in Firefly is rough for me. I don't know who my favorite character would be. It's really, really hard to say. They all have such individual characteristics. It's hard for me to say that I like one more than the other. She was the one that deserved the song and to be the hero of a crappy town. You're not biased at all because your name is Kaylee? Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, Wash is hard to top. I'm a leaf on the wind. Anyway, so Philae gets saved as well. So what I'm trying to get at by talking about all of these big cities of the Blemmyes people and then saying, oh, we don't have them anymore, is that unfortunately a lot of the stuff that we could have probably learned about these people has been unfortunately lost to the ages. We do know that they had tribal organizations, they had tribal chieftains, and that a lot of the semi-nomadic groups would patrol sort of up and down this coastline here between the Nile and the Red Sea. Over time and later on, we will talk about these people again in future phases and future episodes. Some of these clan chieftains are going to end up being kings, and they have some pretty big impacts in a couple of other ancient cultures further down the line. So this is sort of just our introduction to the Blemmyes, and we'll come back to them later on, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on. All right, so last topic for the night, and I'm already running over time. The Kingdom of Aksum. Wash can be your hero of your crappy town. We'll be your hero here. Aksum is going to be this region right down here. Now, today, if we would put up the borders, we would call Aksum Ethiopia and Eritrea. These two regions right here. So if we looked at these sort of in a 3D zone, we would have Meroe, which was right around in here. We would have the Blemmyes, which sort of moved around right around in here. And then we would have Aksum, which is going to be very, very big and dominates a lot of this zone right around in here. Now, Aksum is going to be different than the other two because they are going to have a lot more contact and a lot more in touch with this big group over here, which is the Arabian Peninsula. So Arabia and this area are going to have a lot of overlapping ideology, ethnicity, linguistics, culture, so on and so forth. So Aksum was originally going to grow out, if we went way back in time, the first group of people that are in this area are called Punt, P-U-N-T. I got to get going, unfortunately. It was nice to catch the stream. See you next time. Yeah, Metran, thanks for hanging out. I hope that work goes all right. I hope that the night shift doesn't get you all backwards and upside down, my friend. I hope that the oracle of the pizza grows strong within you and you begin to see all the potholes in the future that you can avoid. Don't eat too much pizza, though. It's probably bad for you. But have a good one. It's good to see you. Glad you could make it. So way back in the day, these were referred to as the people of Punt. They were an ancient foe of the Egyptians. They also traded a bit with the Egyptians. The gold, of course, is going to be a big deal. They also have wood. Wood in ancient Egypt is hard to find because, as we know, it's a giant honking desert. So most of the wood that we see in Egypt comes from further up the Nile River, places like Meroe and Aksum. They also have a lot of things that are going to go into perfumes and aromatics. So if you know anything about the Egyptians, you'll know that they actually cared a lot about hygiene, and they liked to smell good. They had an aversion to body hair, but some of the more interesting things that they would keep in their sort of day-to-day toolkits were aromatic things that would make you smell better. And a lot of the resins and natural ingredients that just smell really good actually came from up the river from Aksum, places that are going to develop things like frankincense, which of course everybody might recognize from one of the gifts that comes to the baby Jesus from the Magi, who were Zoroastrian fire-worshipping priests. Egypt needs more wood. Pizza is the food of the gods. Lactose intolerance is notwithstanding. So, Aksum. They are going to be expanding through time. If we look at the sort of height of the Egyptian world from about 1000 or so BC to about 800 or so BC, Aksum is going to be expanding. They're going to conquer a region called Demit, which was an independent kingdom, and they're going to build a big new capital city at a place called Mazaber. And unfortunately, Mazaber is not completely known. It gets into questionable stuff, but the story goes is that this ancient king of Aksum, who was almost certainly mythological, named Aethiopus, which is where we get Ethiopia from. It's I-T-I. I'm like, I can spell this, or I can... Aethiopus. He is this guy that supposedly establishes the kingdom and builds this capital city at Mazaber. We don't have a lot of evidence from Mazaber. There are a couple of places that we've excavated that people are like, this is it, we found it. And other people are like, I don't think so. And other people are like, we just don't have any idea where it is. No, it's not matzah. Yeah, Figment. Yeah. I'll enjoy all of the pita next time we're in Turkey. No, this is not where matzah soup comes from, though. So, Aethiopus, this is, by the way, King Aethiopus, again, is where we get the modern word Ethiopia. Ethiopia. So, Ethiopus, Ethiopia. There we go. He was probably mythological if there was a guy that actually was him. We don't know anything about him other than what the stories tell. The stories say, though, that Mazaber was this giant city. It was full of humongous sculptures. It had all these temples. It had all these big monuments. And this is another problem. Like, the places that people have dug up that are like, this is Mazaber, they don't have the big temples and monuments and stuff. So either the ancient sources are lying, which they could have been, or we haven't found it yet, or both. So it's okay for us as historians and archaeologists to say, we don't know. It's okay. We don't have to know everything for it to be good, for it to be good, solid history. But we are going to talk about a guy that is much more organized and knowledgeable. We knowable about. Good gravy. I need to go back to sleep. Zoskiles. And of course, this is a Greek version of his name. There is an entire argument in the historical world about what his actual name was. If you were to look at the Aksumite language, what would his actual name be? And through the transliteration process, how were letters changed, and yada, yada, yada. There's a big argument. We're just going to stick with Zoskales because that's how I know him, and that's how you'd be able to look him up. If you wanted to go do more research on this guy, you could go look up Zoskales. But who is this guy? Well, he was a big, powerful king, and he is going to begin expanding the kingdom of Aksum. And one of the places that he's going to take is a really important coastal city called Adulis. Adulis, which is here on the coast in what is modern-day Eritrea. Right up there. So I have some images. So there, we do know where Adulis is. It's a big city for quite some time. They are currently working on excavating a lot of the big buildings there. This is from the excavation of Adulis, and this is probably a building that is way later than what we're talking about. This is probably a building from the 500s, and it's probably a church. But when you're digging around on the internet looking for excavation photos of ancient cities in Ethiopia / Eritrea, it's hard to find exactly what you're looking for. So one of the things that I was asked one time in the stream was, what's the point of going to some of these places, right? Because I love to travel and I love to go see stuff with my own eyeballs. Another great part of going to see the stuff is that I can take the pictures that I want. Like when I want to teach about these things in my class, I want to have certain pictures. And if I go take these pictures, then I have them. And it doesn't take me 4 hours of digging on the internet to try to find a picture of the palace of Adulis, which apparently does not exist in photographic reference. Anyway, Zoskales takes over this big city, and this is going to put him on the map, figuratively, but it's really going to put him on the map of regional trade. Because by that point, there was... What's the... Okay, Figment. Okay, calm down. You and I are in a different world. Not everybody wants to go climb around ancient ruins all day. Not everybody wants to go get in a 4-wheel drive vehicle and drive 2 hours across a desert to see a Roman cavalry fort. Not everybody is built like us. And that's okay. It's fine for that, because that means we get to go do that and we can share stuff with other people and they can learn through our experiences, which I think is a great thing. Well, they haven't tried it. Don't knock it till you try it. Take me to the VR ruins. The point can just be pointing. Maybe your desire is just to point at old things. What's that over there? Oh, it's a big old temple. Oh, cool. Why wouldn't you want to go scuttle around a tomb on a hill just because? I don't know. I have decided, though, that next time someone does a request for a photos-only share stream, I will be sharing the tumulus, my tumulus photos. One of the greatest adventures that I've ever been on. It just so happened that Figment was there. Figment and I, with another one of our colleagues, were in Turkey, and we were actually going to this particular big site that was a big mausoleum. And I looked up to the side of the hill, and I'm like, that looks like something. And Dan, the guy with us, was like, it's a bunch of stone. I'm like, yeah, but that's not natural. Like, that's a wall. There's a thing, like, up there on the hill. So, yes, I was pointing at the old stuff. And he's like, well, I don't know what it is. And I'm like, you're supposed to know everything. Dan had planned the trip, by the way. Daniel Lander makes it a point not to get out of bed for anything less than golden monkey idols. Oh, goodness. Hey, Dan. Welcome, my friend. Everybody go follow Daniel Landerman. And don't let him fool you. He is a well-traveled individual. He's also an incredibly generous individual when it comes to his knowledge and his experience. He's a great artist with an eye for fantasy worlds. You should definitely go give Daniel a follow. He's a cool dude, and I enjoy hanging out in his streams. So yeah, we're looking up there, and there's this thing, and I'm not actually going to give you the rest of the story. So if somebody wants the rest of the story, you're going to have to either wait for the photo stream, which might not ever happen, or redeem the Summon the Adventure hat. So anyway, I do that on purpose, by the way. So Aksum, big city, Adulis, Zoskalis is going to have this kingdom. He's got himself latched in with the wider world. And this is where he starts getting recognized. This is in the first century, right around probably the 90 mark, the year 90 or so. He is going to be visited by some Greek travelers who are writing basically a travel journal. They've traveled all the way around the ancient world, and they're writing all the stuff that they got to, and they meet Zoskalis. And the ancient sources say, yeah, that dude's kind of a jerk. They say that he was a harsh negotiator and that he was a miser. But they do mention that he knew Greek, which is important because by this point, Greek had become the language of trade. And these ancient Greeks calling him a miser was probably just code for this guy didn't let us pull the wool over his eyes because he knew how to speak Greek. And when we were doing trade stuff with him and talking to him directly, he didn't lose anything in translation. So this was actually probably an underhanded compliment. Like, he is a miserly jerkface, meaning we couldn't trick him with our fancy wares. We give this king 2 stars. Anyway, so Zoskalis and his kingdom of Aksum are going to be pretty big and pretty involved. Now, if we're talking about culturally speaking, again, the kingdom of Aksum is closer to people that live over in the southwestern part of Arabia. There are some ethnic ties with some Semitic groups out of Arabia, especially a Semitic group called the Sabaeans. The extent to which the Sabaeans and the native African people were ethnically intermixed is a long-going debate, and it has actually become fairly politically and religiously charged, so we're not going to get very deep into that. But they speak a language that was African with a very, very heavy Semitic impact on top of it, so it's kind of a blend of Semitic language with native African language. Their written language is called AiH, and it's from Arabia originally. Nope, like this. There we go. And I like showing people written language. It's one of my things. I really enjoy showing you written words. So I have here a document written in their native language, and it is here. Boom. So this is what they're writing, the AiH language looks like. If you know Hebrew, you can probably see some elements that look kind of Hebrew. And if you know Arabic, you can see some of these letters, like this guy right here, and these guys that could kind of be Arabic. Because this is... Again, it's a very Arabic-influenced written language. So, pretty cool stuff. Now, the Kingdom of Aksum is going to last for a really, really long time. And eventually becomes the Kingdom of Ethiopia and shares the distinct recognition of being one of only 2 countries in all of Africa that was not colonized by the Europeans in the 1800s. The other one being Liberia. So Aksum is pretty cool stuff. And we will talk about all of these people again moving on into future streams. But I did want to put them on the radar and start talking about them so that everybody knows where they come from. And I really enjoy this kind of history. I think this is part of the history that gets left out when you take high school world history, or, I mean, even in my world history classes, I don't have a lot of time. I've referenced this before, but in World History 1, I have to cover from human existence, like the beginning of humanity, all the way to the year 1500 AD. And I had to do that in one class. So there's just not a lot of time to talk about all of the other cool stuff. You sort of have to skip across the wave tops. And even then, I have to cut stuff out. You know, like if we have a hurricane, I have to pick, like, do I want to cut out Rome? Do I want to cut out India? Do you want to cut out half of China? It's a pain. Which is why I love to talk about this stuff on stream with you all, because, well, number one, you're interested, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And number two, the world is so much bigger than what we get taught in Western schools. And understanding the way that the world operates is the first step towards understanding that we are all just people, right? Everybody is a person. We all share way more in common than we do in differences. And we need to start having that mindset and approaching people like we are cousins instead of approaching people like we are enemies. I think that's one of the big issues. A lot of people get scared because people are different. They don't understand different. But you can. You just do a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of work sometimes. You know, you meet somebody from Ethiopia and you don't know anything about Ethiopia, it might be easy to just label them as the weird foreign guy. But what if you are the weird foreign guy to them? So, you know. You appreciate that my time at ORU required history or humanities basically every semester. That's cool. There's so many little details that contribute, and things change sometimes vastly in short periods as well. Yeah, exactly. There are neat little kingdoms that pop up for 200 years and then they're gone. Some of them don't even last 100 years. Like there's a kingdom called Commogeny, which I actually really wanted to talk about because I've been to a lot of their sites. But even in my slightly lower than the wave tops discussion here on Adventures in History, I couldn't figure out a good way to fit them in because the knowledge that we know about them wouldn't fill up a whole stream, and I didn't necessarily have another half of a stream to talk about something with. So, you know, I'm even leaving stuff out of this. So I'm teaching this. When I put these discussions together, I'm somewhere between like a 200 and a 300 level history class is what I try to do. So, yeah, I could put some of that in a picture stream. I could. That's a great idea, Figment. But picture streams have to come off viewer request. So, all right. So that is all for me. That is everything that I had planned. But, as always, that doesn't mean that we all have to run away. If you all have any questions about any of this stuff, if you all have any points that you want to trade in, now is the time. Anybody want to talk about anything in particular or anything of that nature, we can do so now. Oh my goodness, why are you still bleeping at me? My computer hates my guts. Give me the pictures and the beautiful little nations and details. Well, I mean, you went to a lot of the Commogeny places with us. I seem to remember one particular location in Commogeny where you're like, let's go up to the top of the hill. And then we got to the top of the hill and sat down in the tomb, and you stomped in and you were just like about to die from hyperventilation. So maybe Figment, maybe what we need to do is maybe you need to start streaming and then you could do picture streams. There's a settlement. Anything happening in Western Africa? I mean, lots of things are happening in Western Africa, but I don't know, like if you're asking for anything in specific, I have not seen anything happening. Like, even in my news feeds, I have not seen anything popping up about Western Africa. But that doesn't mean that there isn't anything going on over there. All right. The only thing that I could probably talk about, well, and I talked about this a couple of streams ago, is the violence that's still happening over in places like Niger and Burkina Faso. Summoning the adventure hat. Dun, 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 dun. I knew it would get somebody to bite. So, in this particular event, we were over in Turkey. Inquiring tunas want to know. Ancient Western Africa. Oh, like, is there something going on in ancient Western Africa? Yeah, the people in Western Africa at that point were still very... their level of organized culture was not as high. They were still semi-nomadic in most cases and fully nomadic in other cases. There were not a lot of cities going around over there. The Bantu migration, which is going to be really important for basically the population of a lot of southern and eastern Africa, is going to start not too long after that. But at that point, most of the people that are living in Western Africa are going to be nomadic in that they are perpetually moving around, or semi-nomadic, meaning that they have cycles where they go north and south depending on what season it is. So, all right, Emmy, go walk the chopper. Walk to the chopper. How much more of the continent was green back then? It's really hard to say. The Sahara would have probably been, maybe this part would have been green. The Kalahari would have maybe been even a little bit bigger than it is now, but that takes a lot of speculation, and we're not 100% sure. So, all right, what's up with the big rocks? So, myself, Figment, and our friend Dan were at this big mausoleum. By the way, the mausoleum was actually a guy that was an important figure in the Seleucid Empire. He was one of the regional governors of the Seleucid Empire. But we don't have to go into all that stuff. Anyway, we look at the top of the hill, and I see this wall. And I go, there's something up there. And Dan's like, okay, fine, I don't know what it is. And I'm like, well, we need to go find out what it is. But in Turkey, being able to see the top of a mountain doesn't actually mean that you get to go to the top of the mountain. So we sort of lucked out and found what was essentially a goat path that went up the mountain and climbed up to the top of the mountain. And when we got up there, the wall was pretty clearly a retaining wall, and it was circular. And I knew immediately what it was. I was like, this is a tumulus. So a tumulus, I'm typing. I need to type over here. Dun, 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 dun. A tumulus is where we get the word tomb from, but it is a big man-made hill with a tomb inside of it. Let me see if I can actually find this. I wonder if Google Earth will find it. Hey, look, Blemmyes Mausoleum. Cool, it knows where it is. Oh, now I'm going to have to try to find the actual... Oh, check it out. Can we see it? All right, so if that's there, it would have been on this mountain. You can kind of see. You can kind of see it. Kind of see it right there. Right here. Anyway, the mausoleum is right over here, and it's actually ridiculously impressive. Just a bit about the specific location. The mausoleum was carved out of the end of this mountain spur. So this mountain spur used to come all the way out here, and the people carved the monument out of that. I wonder if we can get a view from the... Do we have road view? Yeah! Google Street View for the win. Can we see the monument? Of course not. Well, dadgummit. Maybe if we get a little bit further. No, they put trees there because you're not... Anyway. Oh, well. This big square thing is one piece of rock. And they carved the whole thing out of the spur of the mountain. It was brilliant. You went to Gyeongju, saw a bunch of tumulus stuff. You'll have to post pictures. Yes, nice. Oh, cool. Oh, cool. That's really neat. Anyway, so we get to the top of this mountain over here. You can see that. You can see it better right there. Okay, so you see how this is a big circle? All of this is... This whole hill right here is a tomb. And it's a fake hill. And the entrance is over here. And we spent about an hour and a half climbing around inside of that tomb. And it was amazing. It's a 4-chambered tomb. The first chamber is this really, really long entryway that was probably about 10 yards. And what is that in meters? 2. I can't do math in my head. So 2 meters is about 6 feet. 5, 10, it'd be about 5 times about 10 meters. So 10 meters or so. Anyway, this long entryway, and then there's an entry room that was about probably about 15 feet square. Got to head to bed. All right, Beef, take it easy, man. Oh, I'm sorry. I just say that you're a man. I say everybody that's a man. I apologize if you're not a man, but take it easy, my friend. First chamber, you go into a second chamber, and in the second chamber, we found out that there's actually a chamber above, and all of this stuff was carved out of the bedrock with big monolithic slabs on the roofs. The roofs had these bevel edge oh man, it was so friggin' cool. And we climbed around and we figured out how to get into all the different areas and found the burial chamber. And there weren't any goods or grave goods left. It had long been looted, but that is easily one of the more Indiana Jones sort of feelings that I've ever had in my life. It's like, that looks like a thing. We should go check that thing out. And then we spent about 2 hours hanging out in this really wicked cool tomb right here. And next time we do a photo share stream, I will definitely be putting that one in there. As far as you're concerned, everybody's a dude. We could get behind that. All right. So there we go. Okay, so anybody else have any questions or anything or any ideas or any such of that? Otherwise, we are going to go try to find somebody to do the raid. Everybody and everything is a dude. You, me, the dog, your phone when you drop it, the lamp when it flickers. So how accurate are all the booby trap stories in tombs? Not very. There are booby traps sometimes in tombs. But the whole, like, step on a pressure plate and the darts fire out of the wall. Like, that's not really a thing. Usually the types of traps that you would encounter are things like, I open this big doorway that's a slab of stone, and when I move that doorway out, the roof collapses on me. That's a pretty common one. No giant boulders, no pressure plates, no playing the bones like One-Eyed Willie. It's not nearly as elaborate as a lot of people think it is. These ancient stories are, these people are super innovative. Yeah, roofs falling and curse inscriptions. That's pretty... Imagine engineering a trap that would last 10,000 years, right? It's just not that thing. So it's like practical jokes with a deadly twist. Lots of curses. Lots and lots of curses. Lots of, if you disturb this body, may so-and-so horrible thing happen to you and your lineage and your bowels and your nether regions and your progeny. And the curses were sort of not really that big of a deal because a lot of people couldn't read. So you knew that there were probably curses written on the wall, but it's like, I'm breaking in to steal rich stuff. I don't read. I don't know what all of this junk says because literacy in the ancient world is super rare. So you just had to kind of take it as a given that you shouldn't be in there. All your ex-girlfriends are booby traps. It's always the bowels and the nether regions. Yes. It's a trap for a boob. So a boob, when it was originally used, is a dumb person. A person that is easily tricked. So it's designed to trick easily tricked people. If you can't read, you can't be cursed. Right? This is how Strahd was cursed. He couldn't read. Pretty much. All right, ladies and gents. I think it is approaching Montezuma's Revenge Egyptian style. I think we are about to go do ourselves a raid. Thank you, as always, for hanging out. I really have such a great time hanging out with you all. You are such a great group of people. And I'm not saying that just to blow smoke up your hiney's. It's really fun for me to come hang out with everybody and get to spend time with some cool people. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Finesse. We're going to go raid Cryo. Cryomera is a very good streaming friend. I guarantee you that my stream would not be here if it were not Cryomera and a couple of other people pushing me into doing it and giving me so much help and support along the way. Cryo is an excellent artist, a very kind soul. Please do show her some love when we get there. As always, our battle cry is adventure. And if you would be so kind as to throw that into the chat with lots of exclamation points, that would be appreciated. If you have those lovely adventure hat emotes, you are free to share as many of those as you would like as well. Otherwise, I will see everybody hopefully on Saturday for a History of the Middle Earth stream. And that's going to happen. I'm going to will it to happen. The only thing that it would make it not happen is, of course, a tropical storm knocking out my power and my internet, which is possible. It's possible. But I'll keep everybody appraised as to what's going on. I will also make sure that everybody keeps up with that. If you check out the Discord, you can check that out. Otherwise, I will see everybody next week. Thursday, we're doing medieval Japanese culture and art. Hope everybody has a good one. Until then, thank you all so very, very much, and I'll see you around.